And I'd really appreciate it if everybody could turn off their microphones for the moment, if that's okay, and your images as well, just for wavelength purposes. Katie, this has been a wonderful journey with you for Landy, your primary supervisor, and me, your co-supervisor. And we're so delighted that your exhibition is up at 33 Twickenham Avenue. It's a very auspicious day. 16th of November is the 160th anniversary of Indian indentured labourers first arriving in South Africa. And that ties so much into your content, as Lundy will be explaining when she does the opening address. But I want to congratulate you on this point, and say how fabulous it's been to have you as a student. I always feel at this time of year a sense of pride and pleasure when somebody submits their work. But at the same time, I feel terrible sadness because we're also losing them, and we will miss you. You've created a sort of indelible mark on the place, crept into our hearts. We really, really will miss you and hope you will visit us a great deal. So, as I say, it's a celebration, but for me it's tinged with a bit of sadness as well. Lundy will do the opening address, and I think I'm going to turn over to her now. So Lundy, if we go to you.
Thank you, Brenda. Yeah, thank you. I just want to reiterate what Brenda just said. You know, Katie, really, it's been a wonderful journey and a privilege to be able to go through this research process with you and see you really grow as an artist, but also as a writer, and also in terms of how you dealt, you know, with the material that you tackled over the past 2 years. Without further ado, I know that nobody can see my face, so please do excuse that. But I have a few slides since we can't be in this space together this evening. We thought it would be nice to have some slides to just take you through some of the images of some of the work so that you are aware of what the work looks like. I will have more details up around Katie's walkabouts and things, so please don't think that you can't see the exhibition. You absolutely can. There's just a few sort of arrangements around how that works, but please do go and see it. Okay, so I'm going to get started then. I've got a few notes that I'll be presenting. This body of work centers around a place that is special to Kate'Lyn's family and where her maternal and paternal family histories intertwine. That place is an agricultural area in KwaZulu-Natal entitled Sawarti. Kate'Lyn's family first came to Sawarti after indenture ended in 1911, when they were awarded land there. And in 1933, her maternal great-grandparents built a temple and a Hindu school on the land as part of a program that the government of the Union had initiated then. Her paternal family in turn rented land there between 1930 and the 1950s. Kate'Lyn's exhibition, entitled A Place Away, is based on the family's photographic archives, as well as other documentation that she has found in her research over the last 2 years. The artworks you see here this evening are her answer to many of the questions that the family archive could not answer. What did her maternal great-great-grandfather Nirumuke look like, for example? What could she piece together of her paternal grandmother Ruby's life after her death and Kate'Lyn's grandfather Ram Chetty's third marriage eclipsed her from the family photographs? Another question that we might now have, however, is what is a place away? During her conversations with family members and in excavating the photographic archives in the various places where they were kept, Kate'Lyn came to realize that the landscape of Sawarti was deeply intertwined with her family's sense of belonging in South Africa, and that it was even implicated in her own South African Indian identity. As she says in her dissertation, the waters of the Sawoti River flow through her body. On this very symbolic day, which marks the 160th anniversary of the arrival of indentured Indian labourers in South Africa in 1860, we can look back on a very personal meditation of landscape, family and belonging in Kate'Lyn's work. What is presented here is, in a sense, Kate'Lyn's own answer to the archive, her looking back, as it were, into the past and filling in gaps and making links where perhaps the family had not made any. The place away is part of this construction. What Katie had noticed in looking back over the visual family history is that Sawoti, in the eyes of the family and its photographers, themselves family members, came to be portrayed as an idyllic place of sorts, even picturesque, a place that provided some shelter from the political upheavals that played out over the years in colonial and apartheid South Africa. The place away might not really exist. Marian Hirsch, a scholar known for her work on trauma and what she refers to as post-memory, speaks about how family photographs often depict idealized versions of the past, omitting traumatic moments. This seems quite natural. When we take photographs, we tend to focus on the celebrations and the happy moments we want to capture for our photo albums. In terms of this particular family's history, which is one history for Kate'Lyn rather than the history of two families, as she unites them, there is a stark contrast between the happy family life in Sawoti and what was happening in the country. Most of the artworks on display here are based on photographs taken in the 1980s and 1990s, a tumultuous time in South African history, and all the more so in relation to land. The time is marked by several states of emergency and the beginnings of very large political changes towards democracy. Members of the Chetty family were, for example, subject to forced removals in Cato Manor. In the family archives depicting Sawoti, however, there's no sign of this. Children pose in front of the river, smiling brightly in the sunshine. Adults gather for picnics, and groups of people represent the sense of family and belonging that suffuse these images. In the background is Sawoti's landscapes, lush, fertile, and peaceful. The river is often there, running through history and providing for the families that lived around it. The artworks that are based on the archive are completely different, however. They present a much more complex view of place than the family photographs. Here, Katie has manipulated images of the river. By transferring photographs to aluminium plates and biting them in acid, she had first intended to make aquatints based on the photographs. What emerged was so interesting in itself that it gave birth to a new visual language, where printmaking, photography, and digital post-production processes were combined. Instead of printing these images, Katie scanned the plates into digital files and manipulated them to arrive at layered and complicated images that start to tell a story of their own. Here the Sawoti River, as she refers to it, due to another gap in the family's history, appears now in flood and now snaking between the hills of KwaZulu-Natal. This digital print, entitled simply Sawoti River 90s, recalls photography in complex ways. When we look at it, we can tell that it used to be a photograph, but now it is something more. There is additional noise. The texture of the aluminium plate comes through, and the incongruous green grass tells us that this is also at the same time a digital image. This image now presents a view of Sawoti that is suffused with the past, but which is also of the present moment. It's a visual time machine, transporting us to the special place that Katie has chosen to call the place away. In a sense, this idyllic landscape, with a formulaic river twisting pleasingly towards the horizon, is also a utopia, a no place. It does not exist, other than in this artwork and in Katie's imagined memory of the place as it was in the past before she was born. Like an old printed photograph, there are blotches and signs of damage in this image, and we cannot really tell exactly where the river ends and the sky begins. The topography of the landscape is murky. Some information has been lost. This artwork depicting the river in flood is even more murky. Here it's not just the landscape that becomes unclear. It looks as though we're looking through a veil at the river. In a sense, this is a visual metaphor for the veil of memory, which obscures so much of the past in a family's passed down history. Who knows which details go missing when such histories get passed down between generations? The landscapes of our past become imaginary landscapes, taking on topographies that we sketch for them from photographs and memories. One may even consider the murk of history around Indian culture and identity in South Africa. Neglected for a long time during the apartheid regime, young artists such as Kate'Lyn revisit this history in the context of academic research that is sorely needed, and in artworks that tell the stories that were repressed in the past. In the process of unearthing this history, not everything is apparent, however, and instead the result is often more veiled and unclear than the researcher might like. In this print of Katie's grandfather, Amichan, and family at SARChI River in the 70s, one can see more such signs of erasure and obscuring. Here there is a sense of familiarity in the image. We have all posed for such family photographs, and yet the noise of the aluminium plate and the digital processing here overpowers the figures to the point of obscuring them altogether. These portraits may leave one with more questions than answers. Who were the people in this image? What did they look like? Can we make out smiles? This image, like others, Katie uses this visual, where Katie uses this visual technique, may even fill us as viewers with a sense of foreboding. Where is the idyllic SARChI now? The way in which noise interferes with the photographs in these artworks points to what is obscured in such images. While family photographs paint a picture of a pleasant past, these images point to all not being quite as idyllic as family archives may make them seem. These images remind us that the language of photography is a language that often obscures as much as it reveals. While we may trust photographs to document our family histories, a more pertinent question is what they reveal about the absences or omissions in such histories. In many of these artworks, ghost images arise. Seemingly spontaneously, outlines of figures appear, and one may even imagine details where there are none. The almost brutal treatment that the artist has subjected these photographs to may furthermore be the unconscious surfacing of the undercurrent in South Africa when these images were taken. They also reveal something of the uncanny nature of photography. Portraits such as these are ominous because they have captured real people in a real place, and as much as it is difficult to make out individual features, one knows when looking at such an image that this is a real moment in time. What becomes ominous or even disturbing is how little one can tell about these individual people. It points not only to the transience of time, but also the transience of memory in family life, and also in social histories. That is why Katie's work is all the more important, as it recovers in idiosyncratic ways histories that are often too obscure in social history. The history of Indian life in South Africa is not often foregrounded enough, and a lot of research is needed to recover this lack in how South African identity is regarded. In preparing to close, I want to consider one more aspect that is prominent in this body of work, and that is the temple building in SARChI. It is represented in many of the artworks in this exhibition. In artworks such as this one, entitled Temple and River, it has become almost a part of the topography. It blends into the landscape, tempting one to think that it has always been there. This is also symbolic in terms of its meaning to the family, representing a way for people to establish roots on the land and to practice their daily lives in relation to the land through this beautiful structure. This artwork, entitled SARChI Temple and School on its opening day in 1937, which is printed on paper that Kate'Lyn made from sugarcane, shows the first image the family has of the school and temple. Here I can perhaps then briefly summarize the various ways in which she has worked with the Photographic Family Archive in this exhibition. This particular artwork is printed onto handmade paper. In order to make this paper, also used in several other artworks, the artist has to break down the sugarcane until it is digestible enough to process in an industrial beater, where it is further broken down to make a paper pulp. This pulp is then dyed by hand, with the pigment fixed into the fibers, almost like one would develop a photograph chemically. The blue pulp is then cast onto a flat surface using a paper-making screen and pressed between many layers of wooden panels. It is dried over a period of time, and only then does a sheet of paper emerge. The sugarcane is, of course, very significant to this body of work, as it recalls the sugarcane plantations where many indentured labourers worked when they arrived from India. Kate'Lyn's labour in making the paper is a kind of echo of her forebears' labour and toil in the landscape of KwaZulu-Natal. The most prevalent technique used to make artworks in this exhibition relates to both printmaking and to photography. The majority of the larger and smaller prints you see on display here were made in a process that was both explorative and has given the artworks a unique appearance. These prints started out as aluminium plates that were destined for printmaking, but as I already mentioned, when Katie instead scanned them into digital files and started manipulating them, the result became more interesting than the prints they gave rise to. These images are layered, and at times we see, as I have pointed out, veils or screens, or even things that don't make visual sense. Another technique that Kate'Lyn explored here is cyanotype. This is a printmaking process that allows her to develop photographic images in the characteristic cyan tone, which is blue. The large image of the altar in the temple, still being used by her family today, even though they no longer live in Sawarti, is impressive in scale, and producing such a large print is no mean feat. In fact, today, Kate'Lyn told me that this is life-size. So if you see it in the space, you can see how, the temple really would look on the inside. Once again, the labor of making this artwork may be thought of as the artist's own labored engagement with her family archive. Through this labor, she transforms the scale of the temple to enormous proportions, impressing on the viewer how important the temple is to the family, but also how it interiorizes the landscape and its significance for the family. The temple, built by her family as a labor of belonging, echoes through time to the artist's own labor in drawing together these archival records and in engaging with these very personal artifacts on a physical level. The blue color evident in much of this exhibit is also layered with meaning and suggestion. It recalls the association between the color indigo and India, as the Latin word indigo literally means color from India. Last, one may then refer to the aluminium plates themselves, which are usually obscured from view in printmaking. These are like negatives, not intended for the viewer, but here they further develop the links between histories and images and exist as echoes in the memory. As viewers, we're invited to look at what would usually remain hidden in the printmaking process, as we have been invited into the family archives by the artist, seeing behind the scenes and beneath the veil of the idyllic life the family lived in Sawarti. I wish to extend my most warm congratulations to Kate'Lyn for completing this beautiful body of work during the most challenging time in recent history and against some daunting odds. To be able to commemorate the arrival of Indian people in South Africa on this day 160 years ago. And please, as I said, do make an appointment to come and see the exhibition with Kate'Lyn. She's doing various walkabouts during the week, so make sure that you do get the chance to come and see the exhibition. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Landy. From what I understand, Kate'Lyn's doing walkabouts at 1 o'clock, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week. So we'd love it if people came to see the exhibition, particularly then to hear what she's got to say about it. She'll allow up to 6 people at any one time. And if there are more people that need to come, she'll arrange extra walkabouts. So do please come and see the exhibition in person. Thanks, Landy, for introducing the work so beautifully as well. And I'll hand over to Katie to say a few words at the end of the proceedings this evening.
So I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to my lecturers, Professor Karen van Wyk, Corinne Basil, Kim Berman, Gordon Fraud, Bronwyn Finley, Vedant Nanikchand, Shoni Netsha, David Payton, and Manette Vari, for their guidance over the last 6 years. To Professor Brenda Schmarman and the National Research Foundation, DST South African Research Chair in South Africa and Visual Culture, as well as the 33 Twickenham Avenue group, which assisted me with financial and intellectual support throughout my research. During the course of my study, I lost my best friend, Cleone Govender, and my little cousin, Mateo. Without the care and support of the following people, I'm going to rush through this. So if I leave your name out, I apologize. But I'll probably send you a message to say thank you at some point. As well as the Department of Visual Arts staff. I may never have found the strength to continue working. To Aisha Waja, Ayabola, I'm not going to say surname, sorry. Animi, Alexia, Alexa, Azal, Brittany, Caleb, Caitlin, Chelsea, Daniela, Danisha, Daniela again with a J, Danica, Deline, Irene, Ilham Bridgewell, Ilham Khan, Jessie Shepstone, Kelly Oldham, Kiveshin, Melaine, Uncle Navi, Nico, Sabi, Sashin, Sinead, Serena, Shashi, Tabang, Theola, Roxy, Ruth, Uncle Vish, and Vanessa, and members of the Kuti Collective. I cannot express how much your support has meant to me. Our conversations over ice cream, Friday lunches, and Zoom calls has not only kept me sane, but your motivation as a group assisted my art making during lockdown. To Fahima Payton and David Payton, your support and enthusiasm, especially after the loss of Cleone, brought me strength when I simply could not continue. David, Shoni, Corinne, Gordon, and Ruth, you created a safe space for me at university, a place that I could make sense of my emotions and academic struggles. And without this, I don't know what would have become of me. So Aisha, Ayabola, Animi, Danica, Roxy, Vanessa, Kelly, and Daniela. Your assistance in setting up the exhibition that accompanied this dissertation this exhibition is noted with thanks. To my family, Serena, Bhavik, Terika, Minal, Uncle Ted, Auntie Githa, Raju, Nirvana, Gashli, Priya, and my grandmother, Paraspati, who shared photographs, memories, and details around Swati. Your contributions to the study are noted with thanks. To Serena, Bhavik, and Terika, your support, motivation, and enthusiasm during the last 2 years has been invaluable. To Philippa, you've taken my thoughts in writing and made sure they sit on the following pages and accompanying images. Your patience and dedication and continuous motivation to do better has had a dramatic influence on my work. Thank you for the hours spent trying to make sense of what I tried to say and accomplish in the study, for sharing with me ways to cope and work through loss. I will never be able to sufficiently express my gratitude. To Landy, or rather to my supervisors, Landy, Raubenheimer, and Brenda Schwarman. Where do I start? This year has been one of the most difficult years for all of us, but somehow we made it. Landy, you saw potential in me when many others did not. You took the time to guide me through my 4th year study, from which this body of work developed. Without your influence, I'm not sure what would have become of my ideas. Brenda and Landy went above and beyond to support me through the loss of Mateo and Cleone. I'm lucky to have had 2 very sharp-minded supervisors. Brenda, you selected me as one of your students during a time of extreme uncertainty. Your personal journey over the last 3 years inspired me to work through my own pain. Brenda and Landy, your faith in me to excel in creating a narrative that is truthful and multi-layered is evident in the pages that follow and the accompanying artworks. Your guidance during times of uncertainty, loss, and frustration is something I will remember fondly. Thank you for your support and motivation, without which this would not have been possible. Lastly, to my father, Kate'Lyn Chetty, your love, dedication, and support are immeasurable. How do I thank the one person that has given me everything I've ever wanted or needed? Pops, you embraced my dyslexia as something to work through. You encouraged me to read and never once complained about the price of books. And man, we bought a lot of books. When I needed to travel to Durban for research, you jumped at the opportunity to play golf in a different province while I worked. You listened when no one else seemed to listen during the last year. You supported my very weird ideas and helped me develop them into meaningful and less weird ideas. Not many parents would have let their adult children turn their living room and veranda into an art studio, but you accepted black bags over the windows and the smell of spray paint and cyanotype chemicals with grace. Your help with my practical work when my body failed me is something I will forever hold dear to my heart. Without you, none of this would have been possible. Okay, that's it, guys.
Huge congratulations, Katie, and thank you for your very kind words. And that brings to an end the opening, the formal proceedings. But I do hope people will join us to look at the exhibition some more, because it's very worthwhile. Thank you, Katie.